Hey there, everybody. It's Ben Taylor, narcissist and self-recovery that's on this platform to help provide awareness, growth, healing, and change for people out there. I work with people who have narcissistic traits and don't know what to do with it, who need to be able to come out and be able to bring out their lies and be able to get into therapy so that they can work on changing themselves and living a better life. I also work with people with narcissistic abuse and try to help them recover through trauma bonds and through the gaslighting and manipulation and the mental and the emotional abuse and physical abuse at times that they've been put through. Getting them into therapy, helping other people just raise awareness of what narcissism is and what it really affects. So today I was driving on my way home and I was listening to a podcast by Brendan Burchard, and the podcast on there, he said this one phrase that really stuck out to me. And he said, no one is going to change until they're willing to walk through the gate of awareness. And really, when I was thinking about it, I was like, that applies a lot to narcissism, because a narcissist is not going to be willing to embrace any type of change out there until they're willing to walk through the gate of awareness. You see, if a narc isn't willing to come to the place where they start being aware, when they start cutting out the lies that they believe and the lies that they tell other people, there's no chance for a narcissist to be able to change. A lot of people want to have that hope. That's what keeps that trauma bond going. A lot of people want to believe that it is possible, and I believe it is possible, but to have a narcissist being willing to be self-aware and to change is literally a lot of times like winning the lottery. It's very rare. 99.9% of all narcissists aren't going to want to change. They're not going to want to be real about who they are, what they struggle with, who they've hurt, and the actions that have led them to where they are. Most narcissists would rather live in a false reality. They'd rather live in a fantasy world. They'd rather live in a reality that they built in their mind that's categorized by chaos, by hurt, by cheating, by gaslighting, like whatever it might be. That's what the narcissist would rather live in and would rather feel than actually be honest. They're not going to get to the place where they want to change. So you can pound it as much as you want. You can tell them, hey, you're a narcissist. Hey, you do this. Hey, you do this. But until they get to the place where they're actually going to admit it and agree and understand and acknowledge it in their own life that what I'm living is not reality, they're not going to change. Because they have to get to the place where they're going to be willing to step through the gate of awareness. If they're not going to get aware, if they're not going to be honest about who they actually are, there's no hope for them to ever change. A narcissist, and anyone really that wants to change, has to first admit the facts about where they are. This is truth. The facts aren't clouded with all this emotion, all this thought, all this drama. The facts are literally just the facts. The fact of how they're living, the fact of how they're acting, the fact of what they're doing, the fact of how they're communicating, all those different things are facts. And when we start looking at it and seeing like, hey, what is the fact about my life? What is the fact about my relationship? What is the fact about how I interact with others? Etc., etc. It just keeps going and going and going. And that's the only place that someone can get to where they will actually admit change, where they will actually admit where they are to be able to start that process to change. And that's the only way to make it happen. In talking with different people, with people who have narcissistic tendencies or people that struggle with that abuse, cutting through the lies is the biggest thing that we need to address and the biggest thing that we need to talk about. Because you have people who've been abused by narcissists that are trying to cut through the lies and figure out who the person actually is. But more than that, they're trying to figure out who they are based on all the lies that have been put on them. Then you have the narcissist who's constructed their reality based on lies. They've constructed a false sense of what's going on in their lives based on the lies that they create. The problem is they won't admit them. They won't see what's actually going on. And the lies that are in their lives and in their hearts and everything else that's going on is going to distract them from actually getting to any type of goal of true change and true development. Once again, I'll say it. No one is going to change until they're willing to step through the gate of awareness. You can't beat this into them. You can't push them to it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's the same idea with a narcissist. You can tell them, you're a narcissist, you gaslight, you manipulate, all these types of things, but until it actually comes to the place that they're willing to be honest, that they're willing to be aware, that they're willing to face the truth, the facts of what's actually going on, nothing's going to change. You see, people today in narcissism and in this world don't want to deal with the facts. They don't want to deal with what is actually going on, because the facts a lot of times seem very controlling, or the facts seem very scary or like vulnerable. But the thing is, you can't get anywhere until you start facing the facts. Facing the facts of your relationship, facing the facts of how you're treated, facing the facts of what you say, of what you do. If it's all based on just feelings and thoughts and whatever it might be, and it's not based and rooted in truth, in facts, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's the thing with a narcissist that has to be really careful, is they'll promise change. They'll promise you that they'll fix themselves. They'll promise you that they'll work on something. They'll promise you that they'll go to therapy, that they'll read a book, that they'll try counseling, whatever. But until they get to the place where they can admit and walk through the gate of awareness to understand who they are, the facts about themselves, the facts about how they've hurt other people, and so on and so forth, they're not going to get to the place that they're going to truly embrace change. So be careful. Be careful of narcissists out there that are going to promise you change, that are going to try to manipulate change, that are going to try to gaslight you with this change that's happening. If it's not true change, you'll see it. You'll see it pretty quickly. It might be over a period of time, but more than often, it'll be a pretty quick turnaround where you'll see X, Y, and Z met, and then all of a sudden you won't see anything else. Whether they put the effort in just for a moment or two, or whether they put the effort in for like a month. So this is why when I'm talking to people, especially on like one-on-ones, and I'm coaching people who are in narcissistic abusive relationships, one of the things I tell them is, if you want to see your narc change, and it seems like they're wanting to change, or they're at least putting forth some form of effort, then give them a couple things to be able to do. Give them a couple tasks of, I want you to do this, or I need you to change this, or we need to do this, whatever it might be. Give them a couple tasks. If you think of it in your head, think of 6 tasks. Give the narcissist 2, and that's it. Don't tell them the other 4, because what will happen is if you tell a narcissist, I want you to perform to these 6 things, they will probably perform to those 6 things and then turn back into the abusive cycle. But if you communicate 2 things, you can see, 1, if they're going to do it. If they don't, there you go, right there. If they do, then you have at least a couple ideas of maybe there's some slight change. But then if they don't start doing the other things that you're thinking in your mind, like if you're talking about like going to counseling and all they do is go to 2 sessions, but they don't stay consistent for the next 5 months, 6 months or whatever, till they get to the place where they actually admit and say who they are or what they're aware of, then right there, you've got an out. Like, okay, in my mind, I told them these 2 things, but number 4 and number 5, they didn't even come close to meeting. So it doesn't actually show that there's actually true change, that there's true lasting change going on. So just a reminder, in dealing with a narcissist, they're not going to change unless they're willing to step through the gate of awareness. If they're not going to be aware and tell the truth and decide the facts of what's actually going on in their lives, they'll never be willing to change, and no change will be real or sustainable.